Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. On today's episode, we're excited to be joined by Chris Blair, the owner of the Listening Room. Now, Chris started his career on the music side of things, chasing a career as a musician growing up in St. Louis, and then moving to Nashville in his early 20s to dive into songwriting. Now, as he began to play more writers' rounds around Music City, he noticed there wasn't many great venues for songwriters. There was the Bluebird Cafe, and then there were just other small venues around town. That's when he started the Listening Room. It hasn't been an easy journey, but he has built the venue up to be one of the premier spots for songwriters in Nashville. We had a great time talking about the journey and how it has led to many great things within his career. So please enjoy our conversation with Chris Blair of the Listening Room. Let's start on the music side and take me back to 6 years old, and I believe standing up for your first solo. I don't know if it was in church or where that may have been. Take me back to that time in your musical history and what that meant for your love of music.
Yeah, I mean, it's as long as I can remember, I was singing. So, the love of music was just always there. So, yeah, at 6 years old, this was at school,
Oh,
and
okay.
um, the choir director for the eighth grade choir asked if I would sing the solo with the eighth grade choir. So, yeah, that was my first taste of being on the stage by myself and kind of leading it, and I just fell in love and went on from there.
That's amazing. So how did they know that you had a voice?
You just hearing me sing and choir, just normal the choir that we went to at school, and apparently I was on pitch and doing things at 6 years old that most kids couldn't do. And so, to me, it was just natural, but it kind of started that journey.
Right. And so within the family, before 6 years old, was it your parents that sort of built that up within you? Were they music lovers as well?
Music lovers, yes. Singers, no, not at all. My grandpa sang in the church choir, and he was pretty good, but no one else really in my family was musical. And it just came kind of natural. And I just, I always loved sports and still do today. But that was where my brother would shine. And I just was kind of like, the participant. And but anything music related, whether it be singing or guitar or piano or just, that's just where I kind of escaped and was just in my own world, and I loved it.
Right. And you mentioned your grandpa being a singer. Now, talk about him and your grandparents. And I saw you mention their farm where you spent a lot of time growing up. Talk about them and that farm and what that meant for your just your life, not even just music, but just your life and growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the country roots, I guess you could say. Work ethic that I got from my mom and dad and both sets of grandparents, like the farm. My grandparents had 500 acres
Oh, wow.
outside of St. Louis, and I would stay out there quite a bit, especially on the summers. And I'd get up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with my grandpa and go feed cattle and milk cows and bale hay, and it's just what we did. And then my grandparents on my mom's side were both entrepreneurs, and
Okay.
both had successful businesses that they ran. And so, I mean, I could go on and on and on about the influences and all of that, from several different aspects of family. But yeah, I mean, it was just, it was great to kind of, you know, be be on the farm and just a lot of fun and riding horses and playing in the creeks and fishing and, just all of those kind of things. But also, again, yeah, it was hard work.
Right. Yeah. And so growing up more in the city in St. Louis with your family, but having sort of that country outlet, where were your musical inspirations at that point? Was it mainly country music, or was it different influences being within the city of St. Louis?
Yeah, yeah, no, I grew up really not listening to any country music.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't say that it wasn't because I didn't like it. I just didn't know it. Um, I mean, I listened to, 80s rock. I mean, I was born in 75, and today's actually my birthday.
Oh,
And
happy birthday. It's my
yeah,
son's birthday too, actually.
oh, very cool, very cool. So yeah, I grew up with the rock hair bands, Poison and Skid Row, and Motley Crue, and I mean, just that was my music. When I was really getting inspired by, like, you know, what I would listen to all the time. Um, in eighth grade, I switched schools and went from a school where no one listened to country music to a school where that's the only thing they listened to.
Oh, okay.
And that was also around the time that Garth was becoming massive. And so that was my first concert, was Garth Brooks. And, I was like, this is a dude with a big cowboy hat and belt buckle singing Billy Joel songs. I mean, it's like, this guy's awesome. This is like, I can get into this.
Right.
So that really is what opened the door into, like, me going down this rabbit hole of country music. And then, through that, fell in love with, the Hanks and, the Waylon, and, just all of the older country music that kind of defined the genre. And then, of course, the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, that was when I was like, that was country was all I was doing then. And that's when I started playing in a band and traveling and putting songs out to radio myself, and, you know, wearing the big cowboy hat and big belt buckle, and, went through that phase. And so, yeah.
And what age was it when you started to sort of get into that band mode and start joining bands? Did you have high school bands, or was it not until sort of after high school that you started to play within bands?
Yeah, it was my senior year of high school, that my grandpa passed away, and I sang at his funeral, but I sang to a track because at that point I couldn't play guitar, um, and wasn't good enough on piano. I play piano now, and I played piano when I was 4,
Oh,
but,
okay.
it was one of those things I never really stuck with. So I was in this church singing a song at my grandpa's funeral, and a great 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 uncle down the line that I had never really met before was also there, and he was playing a 12-string guitar, um, and he sang a song as well.
Oh,
And
okay.
I remember just staring at that, going, "That is so cool that he can do that." So I told my mom and dad, like, that's what I wanted for a graduation present, as a guitar. So they got me my first guitar, and I just that didn't put it down, and started teaching myself chords, and um, I kind of play by ear.
Oh, okay.
And so it was then that I kind of put a band together. So, really all through college I was playing in, cow fields. If we could find a hay trailer and get everything off of it and get a PA out there, I mean, we would just throw our own parties and just, play wherever we could.
Wow. And so that first band that you put together, was that really the band that you took forward with you, or were there a few iterations of it as you went along until you made that point where you really started to make a push towards this being a career?
Yeah, there were several people that I would play with. So, it was really just who I could get together. A lot of people do that now, even the people that play on Broadway, they've got their main guys, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
if there's a gig to be played and the drummer's not available, you're not gonna not do the show, right? So
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, it was I never really had the the band that went on the road with me as kind of a full-time band for more than a couple years. So, but I did have the main guys that played with me when I was putting songs out to radio. That was really the only time, that couple year mark that it was the same guys all the time. And still love those guys, very good talent. And it was fun.
Right. And before we dive more into the music, let's talk about that entrepreneur side of your personality as well and the early businesses within, I believe it was around 8 or 9 when you started to create your own little businesses. And I believe a grass cutting service was one of the first businesses you started. Talk about that side of the brain that began at that young age and what that meant to you back in those years.
Yeah. So, good questions, by the way. Did some digging on me. Yeah, I kind of always had that entrepreneurial spirit, and just wanted to make money and be successful. And my dad had the best yard in the neighborhood, and so I would watch him mow, and the lines were perfect. And just and still today, it's like, so yeah, just I started mowing lawns and doing that so that I could get a bike or whatever. So
Right. Yeah.
it was just fun. But fast forward to kind of how I played that into the music. I mean, I like Blair is my middle name.
Okay.
My full legal name is Christopher Blair Shessel. And Shussle is, when you see it on paper, nobody could ever pronounce it right. So I
Right.
started going by Blair with my music because it was a lot easier to say. Um, but with the music, like I didn't have a manager at the time. I didn't have a booking agent at the time, so I would literally take that entrepreneurial kind of focus, and I would call these places and say, "Hey, my name is Chris Shussle. I represent this artist out of Nashville. His name is Chris Blair. He's a new and up and comer." And like I was basically pitching myself, but I would get a lot further because people would be like, "Oh, he's got representation." They just didn't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And what did that progression look like within the St. Louis music scene and building yourself up? Like, was there a country scene that you were able to build yourself up within?
Yeah, there was. I was very close with the couple big radio stations in St. Louis. And was lucky enough to they were playing my music. At the time, pretty much any big artist that would come through town, we were able to open up for a lot of them. Um, and then playing a lot of fairs and festivals regionally, and Walmart grand openings in Indiana and Arkansas. I mean, it was random crazy stuff. But yeah, we had a pretty decent following, which is, what led me to move to Nashville originally to chase that dream.
Right. And so, how did the timeline work? Because I believe that you also went to university at some point around Nashville and St. Louis. So, what did that timeline look like of St. Louis University moving to Nashville and all of that working together?
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 93, went to Southeast Missouri State University. That's where I really started playing a lot and focusing a lot more on my music than I did my grades.
Oh, okay.
And I was always a good student. I just, it was my focus was like all I wanted to do was be the next Garth Brooks.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was 96, 97 when I had a really solid band that started to make some traction. And it was 97 and 98 that we started putting music out to radio and getting some play. And then, just continued to do that. And kind of, again, like the local St. Louis thing, regionally around that area, you know, anywhere in the Midwest that we could drive to in our 12 passenger van and a trailer. And then it was 2003 that Doug Howard, who at the time was with Lyric Street Records, I was sending everything I could to Nashville, and at that point had some management that was helping out. But yeah, I met with Doug, and he basically was like, "Hey, like we want to work with you, but you need to live in Nashville."
Right. Yeah.
So I drove back to St. Louis, and I had bought a house not long before that, right down the street from my brother. My brother is like my best friend, and it was just like was going to be great. It was right down the street. It was going to be awesome. But yeah, sold my house, quit my job, and 2 weeks later, I was in a U-Haul driving to Nashville without a place to stay.
Oh, wow. And did I see that during that time, during that move, you and your buddy Jamal, I think maybe it was, you were both working corporate jobs and you both made the decision to leave those jobs and move to Nashville at the same time together?
Jamal was a buddy that is here in Nashville.
Oh, okay.
So we were working banking jobs together. He was in marketing, advertising, and I had a finance background. Again, just crazy story because I just wanted to learn more about it. So one summer in college, instead of taking the summer off, I went and got my life and health and Series 6 and 63 licenses. Never thinking I'd do anything with it, but just because I wanted to know how to invest my money instead of trusting somebody else. So,
Oh, okay.
but I took those licenses when I moved to Nashville, and I was like, all right, well, I'll get a banker's job because that will allow me to get off of work early and go do music at night, which is what I did. I'd be in a suit, all day long, and I'd get off at 5, and I would drive to the back alley of Tootsie's on Broadway and change into jeans and a t-shirt, and I played Tootsie's 5 nights a week for a long time.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, Jamal and I both kind of took that leap around the same time, and he started his marketing company called Empire, and he's still doing great at that. And so yeah, it was pretty cool. We both jumped in.
That's awesome. And so let's talk about the time then that the listening room sort of comes into focus. And what point was it where you saw it and thought this could be a thing? Maybe this is a path I should take.
Yeah. So we started Listening Room in 2006, and had a partner that had it established in Franklin, Tennessee. So I partnered up with him, and we started doing it together. But yeah, it was going out and playing different writers rounds myself, and there are a lot of great venues in town. So for me, it was the venues that were focused on the songwriters. There really was only a couple that were doing that, and really only one that had a good name, like the Bluebird.
Right. Yeah.
But still, like, I love the Bluebird. Erica that runs it is a dear friend, and it's great. It just, for me, it was a smaller setting, and I wanted to create this larger type of venue that had really good food and really good drinks, and the best sound in Nashville. The sound is very, very important to me. So, I don't playing other places, other rooms around town where the sound was just second and the food was whatever they could get frozen on a truck and, microwave or drop in a fryer. It was just,
Right.
to me, that's what was missing, is like to take all of those things and create this experience that all works hand in hand, and to connect people with the stories behind the songs and let the songwriter really share their talent, whether it be a new up and coming artist, or writer that no one's ever heard of, or whether it be, a writer that is playing a number one hit that so well from the radio, but you're hearing it from their perspective and how they wrote it and why they wrote it. And to me, it's like there there's the artists have the gift to create these songs right in the studio and share it with their fans, and they do a great job of it. But if they didn't write it, to me personally, when you hear that song from the writer themselves, you will hear more passion and emotion and feeling behind that song than you'll ever hear it from the artist that performs it. It's just
Right.
it's mind blowing, and it's just really what I loved. And that's really, I wrote songs before I moved to Nashville, but I never co-wrote. I never sat in a room and wrote with other people. And it was kind of this path that I was going down, chasing the artist dream, and then starting to like write just for that, where all of a sudden I was like, man, this is cool. Chasing lyrics and coming up with melodies and building this, whatever song. And there's a lot of bad ones that we did, to get to the good ones. But, I fell in love with that, which led me to playing the writers rounds, which led me to realizing there's this gap. And so 2006, the Listening Room was founded.
Right. And so you took full ownership along the way, and then you moved locations to downtown Nashville. Now, when you dove headfirst into this and you took ownership of it and you moved it to Nashville and you began creating this thing, were you of the mindset that you were leaving the artist path behind? Or in the first few years, were you towing that line of being a business owner and trying to build this thing up, but also wanting to be a songwriter and maybe wanting to push that forward as well?
Yeah, when I first started it, I was like, man, I wanted to create a place that would be really cool for me to play with my friends. Um, and then through that, I miss being on stage. My wife had some friends over last night for my birthday, and we sat out on the back porch and um, played guitar and sang songs, and just kind of took turns, like our little writers round on the back porch. And I love it, but I just don't get the opportunity to do it much anymore. And it's kind of like I let so much time go by that now it's just weird for me to get up on stage at the Listening Room. It's a
Right.
lot easier to go somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, it just, when I first started, I knew I wasn't going to go down that artist path anymore. And I think there was probably this thought in my mind that, like, hey, if someone knocks on my door, then I'm open to it. But going back to like wanting the best sound in Nashville, I needed that because I have a very good ear. And with that very good ear, I also started to realize that in St. Louis, I had a pretty good following. In Nashville, I could hear everybody else around me that was like, wow, they are so much better than I am.
Right.
So I started to realize that I had a true talent for crafting a song and doing that a lot better than I did performing the songs as an artist. So yeah, that's when it kind of shifted for me and was like, this is a world that I didn't plan to go down, but it feeds my love of music and lets me do that on the business side. And now having a management company, um, and other things in music as well that I'm able to do. And it just, yeah, so it's just kind of the path worked.
And it hasn't been an easy path, that's for sure. I saw that at one point near the beginning, you were the dishwasher, the cook, the bartender, just in order to make this thing work. And you've changed locations a couple of times. So, was there a point where, like, you saw it becoming something and you saw it becoming a top venue in Nashville and somewhere that artists were wanting to play?
That really was on Second Avenue. So 2006 to 2008 was in Franklin, moved it downtown to a place called Cummins Station in 2008. That's when I bought my partner out and took sole ownership, and then moved it to Second Avenue in 2012. Um, so that's really where it started to change as far as like seeing it on write-ups in magazines, and just all these kind of things that I didn't even, I was getting phone calls like, hey, did you know that you're in Southern Living magazine? I'm like, what? Just that was really cool. But kind of going back before that, really the pivotal moment for me that was like, oh my gosh, this is going to work. A couple songwriters figured out that I was really, really struggling back when I was the dishwasher, the bartender, the cook, the sound engineer, everything.
Right.
And I would put a smile on my face and I would act like everything was fine, but I was sleeping on the concrete floor in the venue many nights because by the time I drove home, I'd have to be back in 4 or 5 hours. And it just was, I was letting all my personal finances go in order to just pay everything that I could to keep the doors open. And I just believed in it. And, there was just this burning in me that like my mom and dad always said, like, we don't quit. Our family, like it with our family, we don't quit. Like going back to the sports analogy, like I would play basketball or baseball or whatever. And there were times where I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to do it anymore. And my dad would say, you don't have to do it next year, but you signed up. And in this house, when we start something, we don't quit. And that was just a burning inside of me that was like, I can't let this fail. So a couple songwriters found out how bad I was struggling. They put together the first annual TLR Appreciation Days. We called it the Writer's Block. And it was a benefit for me, for the listening room. And it ended up becoming the last annual. But it also, that is where everything changed. It was the date that this happened was a couple weeks after the big Nashville flood.
Okay.
And it just hit me that was like, I can't take this. And we had a full house, standing room only. It was packed. It was incredible day. And I was donating a small portion of the proceeds to Hands on Nashville. That's a kind of a quarterback nonprofit that would give to like other nonprofits or, those in need.
Right.
And I put an old band back together and I was on stage singing a song that I wrote called Why Don't You Fall? And it's talks about like how when you're going through those hard times, just let God carry you through it. And it just like, I was like, I'm singing these lyrics, but I'm like taking this money to help me keep a venue open when people have lost their houses and their cars and their everything that they had, and worse, family people, people died in it. So I looked over at a very good friend that was standing and was running Hands on Nashville, and I was like, hey, 100% of this goes to you today. And if it's the will, we'll keep going, and if it's not, at least I go out doing something good. And I mean, Brendan, I didn't change anything. I still didn't have staff. I still didn't have money. It was like, and all of a sudden that was a Saturday. All of a sudden that next Monday I showed up to work, and people just, it wasn't overnight, but people just started coming, and more people started coming, and we started getting busy, and it was like, wow, like this is amazing. And so that kind of opened the door. That flood of people was like, all right, I think we can make this work. And then we found the place on Second Avenue that was just a lot better venue for what we were trying to do. So we moved it there, and people kept coming, and that was where it was like, okay, like the listening room has a name.
Right. And what has it been like on the sort of artist side and following the careers of the artists that you've had a chance to be with along this journey? Like one of the big ones that I noticed was Fillmore. Like you've been with him ever since he was in his band The Lookout when he first moved to Nashville, and you've been sort of connected to him, and he's played the listening room many times over the years. And so what is it like to be on the journey with these artists as they're growing within the industry?
Dude, that's the best thing about what I'm able to do. I mean, it's just yeah, Fillmore is from a town called Kennett, Missouri, and that's where my grandparents lived.
Oh, okay.
And full circle, Doug Howard, that brought me to Nashville, was working with Tyler, and he said he called me and he was like, "Hey, there's this guy coming to town. I want you to write with him. I want you to hang out with him, like, show him the ropes and all that." And we just hit it off. He's just a great dude. And his brother Drew was our sound guy for a while.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, like Carly Pierce is another, like, that played listening room all the time, and still is a very good friend. And Brett Young, and Chris Stapleton, like he and I had never, like, I wouldn't call him a great friend. We were more acquaintances. He, like, I'd hang out with these other guys, but Stapleton was like, I've got videos of him like playing Second Avenue and pointing up at the balcony at me going, "Hey, this next song is from my buddy Chris up there. It's one of his favorites." And I mean, this is before he just blew up. I mean, just I could go on and on and on, but like, watching people struggle. And it's also, it's not just on the artist side. I mean, there's a guy, Phil Barton, that's a great songwriter, and he came from Australia. And I mean, I was watching that guy write literally 2 songs a day, sometimes 3 songs a day. The only vehicle he had was a little moped that he would drive around town in the middle of winter because he couldn't afford a car. And all of a sudden, like, go look him up. He's got hit after hit after hit after hit after hit, and it's like I could list 30 to 50 songwriters that I know like that never had the aspiration to be an artist, that everybody knows as a household name, but they're the ones that are listed on half of the number one hits that you hear on country radio. So it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, and then also going back to like my band days, where I would play and cover these like 90s and early 2000 bands, and becoming good friends with them, Dean Sams from Lone Star. I mean, we used to cover Lone Star songs all the time, Richie McDonald. And I talked to Dean 3 days ago, and it's just like, it's just that is the coolest thing, is just to be connected, like, and be able to watch, and sit at home and watch the ACMs, or be there at the ACMs and watch these people go across the stage and accept these awards. And we were just at the ACM Honors Awards not too long ago, and Carly's hosting it. It's just, it's man, it's just so cool. I love it.
Right. And off the start of our conversation, you mentioned the Garth Brooks concert that sort of started this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, he graced the stage at the Listening Room. Now, what was that experience like? Was that the sort of biggest moment within this journey for you?
There's so many. I don't know if I could say a biggest moment, but that is up there. Yeah. I mean, it's if not the biggest, it's one of the top 2 or 3. And at that point, I had gotten to the point where I had met Garth several times through other things, leadership music that I'm a part of, and um, just different things. And I actually, I was his daughter Allie, still plays the listening room quite a bit.
Yeah.
She's absolutely incredible as well. And there was a moment where I met Garth and Trisha at an event with Leadership Music, and that was the second or third time that I'd met him. And I just, he didn't know who I was, or I didn't think he did. And I just, I was walked up and I was like, "Hey, man, I've, just wanted to say, hey, I've always been a fan." And he looked at me, he's like, "You're the listening room guy, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm Chris." And he's like, "Man, thank you so much for letting my daughter play." And I was just like, I don't think I even said anything. I was just blown away that he even knew who I was. So then going back to 2020, I'm standing outside waiting for the car to pull in so that I can escort them into the green room, because obviously, I mean, we had fans standing in the parking lot waiting.
Right. Yeah.
And he he pulls in. I've got a mask on. It's middle of COVID. It was a private show taping, very safe, all that. But it was kind of planned, and so I had a mask on. He gets out and he looks at me and he's like, "What's up, Chris? I recognize that face behind that mask." And there's a group of probably, I don't know, 10, 15 fans out in this parking lot that we've got bodyguards trying to like keep them back. And he's like, "Hey guys, 1 second." Moves the bodyguards, walks over and talks and signs an autograph for every single person that was standing out there before he walked in. That's just how that guy is. And then, we had probably a 30-45 minute conversation in the green room, and just talked about, like, how it was George Strait for him, getting him going. That the reason that I am in Nashville chasing this dream that ultimately ended up allowing the listening room to be open was because of Garth. And that was, yeah, it was a really, really cool moment to have him on stage.
That's amazing. And within this journey, I mean, you're running this venue, you're a part of many charitable organizations, you have your management company, you're a pilot, you have all these things going on. You have a family. Is there ever too much?
If you're asking me, no. If you're asking my wife, yes. It's all too much. Yeah. Um, it's what I love. I am not built to sit on a beach and relax. That's not me. I'm always, what's next? How can I help someone? What can I do? Um, and just, yeah, I love it. So
And I saw you mention one time, I think, sort of following your heart versus following your brain. And now, what is that like within this career with a passion for music and having it within your heart, but being a businessman and having to maybe more use the brain and the analytical thinking within this journey? How do you balance those two things?
by having a really great team. Yeah. It's hard. Business is tough, especially in the music industry, combined with the restaurant industry. We are a music venue. That's why people come. But what keeps us in business is the restaurant business. So, you know, that is one of the hardest businesses to run, period. It's a very low net profit. Um, Lots of issues. It's tough. So how do I balance it? By being the visionary of the company and having a great integrator that can listen to 10 of my crazy ideas that I come up with on a daily basis. And he goes, "This one will work. The other ones, throw them away. We'll talk tomorrow." And it took me a long, long time to get to that point. But I would not be here today if it weren't for my entire team. They're at the restaurant, they're working hard. Um, and yeah, it's them. It's having the right people around you.
Right. And now you opened the second location last year in Pigeon Forge, and now the state of business, I mean, it's not getting any easier. Prices are rising. The economy is really in flux every day. And so, what does the future hold within this business and continuing to drive forward within the current economy?
Yeah, I mean that's the big question, right? Like I don't know what the future holds, and that's what makes it tough, but that's also what makes it exciting. And I think why us crazy entrepreneurs love this life, because it's not a constant. It's always, every single day is different. So what I hope to do is continue to expand. I would love to have a listening room in Austin and, you know, LA, New York, Atlanta, like great music slash tourist cities, even, like Charleston, or, places that maybe aren't as big in the music, but are great places that people like to visit. Um, And the same thing, that's what led us to Pigeon Forge. I love the Smoky Mountains. It's beautiful. And there wasn't anything like that in that area. Um, Now, we've been open for just over a year, and we haven't had 1 month of profitability.
Oh, wow.
So it's tough, and it's like, thankfully, Nashville is doing well enough to cover those losses. But, it's going into a new market it's just tough, and figuring out how to get the word out and let people know when they come in Pigeon Forge. People are like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that we've had in town in a long time. Like, this is amazing, they love it. But it's the same size as Nashville, and you've got 300 seats and you got 30 people there. It's tough.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, we'll keep pushing, and that's, again, it's the big question. I don't know what the future holds, but I've got to turn that around in Pigeon Forge, um, and make that be successful. And I think we can do that. Um, and then kind of figure out that market, of where we go next, and keep growing.
And within the growth and within getting busier and driving this in different directions, I saw in late 2019 the stress and anxiety of this business career sort of caught up to you, and I think it landed you in the hospital just because of the way you were feeling. And so within this, as you drive forward, how do you balance that? How do you not let that anxiety and that stress overcome you as you're trying to continually build this?
Yeah, again, that kind of goes back to having the right team. It was that moment that I kind of was like, I can't do this all.
Right.
I had to bring people in that were better at me in certain areas and could focus on, because I would come up with all these ideas all the time. It's just how I'm wired as a creator. But then I would also try to execute them and follow through, and all, it was a lot. And yeah, it was just, a lot of these things kept piling up and piling up, to where, I ended up in the hospital. I thought I was having a heart attack, and it ended up, luckily, it was a panic slash anxiety attack. But I had never experienced anything like that. And to be woken up in the middle of the night in a deep sleep because your chest is in so much pain that you can't breathe, and I rolled over and fell out of the bed. I mean, it was scary. But yeah, that was the change that, I just have to constantly remind myself of that. And I'm not very good at it. Again, I'm not a sit on the beach and relax kind of guy. But I've learned how to let things roll off my shoulders a little easier. breathe a little easier, and know that at the end of the day, everything that we're doing is, it's God's will. And that's just, people have different beliefs. That's my belief. And like, um, everything I'm doing is his, and he'll get us through it or he won't.
And if you didn't have that faith within your life, do you think you would be able to get through this?
No, no, I don't. I mean, it caught up on me because I was trying to do everything myself before, and that's what ended up putting me in the hospital. And when I kind of just give it away, it's like I'm not doing anything different really as far as what I physically do every day. It's just that mindset of, I can only do so much, and it's just a different way to look at things, I guess.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. The Listening Room, people can check it out if they're in Nashville or Pigeon Forge. And I know you have some artists that you're working with that are releasing music. Do you want to talk about them for a sec?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So yeah, with my management company, I've got Fiona Coley, who is got some really big things happening behind the scenes right now and in the studio. And you'll be seeing some new music from her early 2023. So that's really exciting. And then AJ Cross with a K. Same thing with him. We've got an agent on board and are building the team, and he's been playing out a lot and building the fan base and writing a lot. And we've got new music coming with him too. So it's really cool.
Thank you guys once again so much for listening, and thank you to Chris for stopping by and sharing his story. If you haven't already, please be sure to check us out on social media. We're available on all platforms, so just head over, search Country Music Made Me, and give us a follow. You can also find us at countrymusicmademe.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive content. Thank you once again so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.